Hello and welcome everyone to Speak in My Piece, presented by JazzTimes in association with Ropeadope. My name is Louis Marks. I'm here at the Ropeadope Room in East Philadelphia. If you're coming back to the show and if you've seen some of the previous episodes, we are on episode 8. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the show, here's what happens. Guitarist Dekel Bor, whose recent release Let Love Rule is out on Ropeadope, sits down with some of the finest jazz musicians on the planet, and today is no exception. We are here to welcome. I just have to stop and say, it is super intimidating to introduce some of the people that we have on this show because these are the best of the best, some titans, and I hope I measure up. Today, jazz pianist, composer, and author Fred Hersch. I just want to read something from his site, written about his book, his memoir entitled Good Things Happen Slowly. Quote, jazz could not contain Fred Hersch. His meteoric rise as an in-demand sideman, one who played with the giants of the 20th century in the autumn of their careers, including Art Farmer, Joe Henderson, and more, blossomed further in the 90s and beyond into a compositional genius that defied the boundaries of bop, sweeping in elements of pop, classical, and folk to create a wholly new music. Reading further, he counts some of his students, as an example, Brad Meldau, Ethan Iverson, Jason Moran, all students of Fred Hersch. He is a consistently passionate spokesperson and fundraiser for AIDS services and education. His most recent record, Begin Again, was released on Palmetto Records in 2019, and you can find more information at fredhersch.com. Guitarist Dekel Bor has performed with jazz legends Johnny Griffin, Reggie Workman, Pat Martino, Billy Hart, and many more. And as I mentioned, Let Love Rule is his most recent release, is out on Ropeadope and available at dekelbor.bandcamp.com. So with a couple of buttons to switch over, we're going to drop in on our conversation with Dekel Bor and the great Fred Hersch. Thank you.
Fred, I'm so happy to see you here. I've been waiting for this for so long. First of all, I want to congratulate you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
To you.
All right, I'll toast you with an espresso.
It's 9 here, so I can drink whatever I like, and there's no judgment yet. But
it took a while for us to get together, but I'm so happy it did.
I'm gonna pretend that you remember this, but I'm thinking 15 years ago, I was 25. I just left the Reggie Workman band, and I had some gigs in New York, and I asked Billy Hart for your number. And Billy gave me the number, and I asked Billy, can you call Fred and introduce me, or I don't want to call Fred Hersch. And he said this. He said, we call Fred a mensch. You don't need an introduction. Just give him a call.
No, that's
and what blew my mind even further was that I was just this kid, and you were already a god in all the eyes of my entire generation. And I said, Fred, would you guest on one of my gigs? And you said, send me the album. And I sent you the album. You said yes. And that was, to me, it was kind of a pinnacle moment. And when we had this album coming out, and I immediately reached out again and asked you to guest, and you again said the most beautiful yes, and then COVID got in the way. But with that being said, I am happy to share with the fans who are watching just the kind of person that you are, which is it's not always, it's so amazing to find that people you idolize as musicians inspire you in the most beautiful ways as people.
Yeah,
that had to be said.
All right, I'm very touched, and yeah, I mean, we all, at least for me, you try to be a good colleague and a good citizen of the community, and of course, Billy Hart exemplifies that. 80 years old almost, and playing with the energy of somebody in their 30s. and always keeping an ear out for the young ones coming up, and being a mentor to so many people. I mean, he's one of the people that I look up to the most, you know, and it's been amazing to play with him through maybe 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah, you guys have a special hookup, a special bounce in the time field.
Absolutely. He's one of the all-time greats. So talk about a mensch.
So Fred, this, as we were setting up, you said, I asked you about teaching, and you said that you felt that you got so much free knowledge and so much wisdom for so many of your elders and your mentors, and you felt that you had to give back. So being the guy that I am, I do the exact opposite. I reach out to you guys still, ask for more. So this is basically, we're just going to chat about music, and I'm going to get to roam your brains for about 50 minutes or so. The first thing that I want to open with is the new album, Songs from Home. It's coming out either, I think, tomorrow or tonight.
Actually, November 6th.
Ah,
and here it is.
Ah, beautiful cover. Whose home is that?
It's.
How do I get that lease?
I just went on the Google, and I Googled cabin, and about 8 rows down, this picture came up, and I thought it exemplified our moment here. You know, you know, I'm lucky that I play the piano, which is a self-sufficient instrument. You know, I can make a solo album in my living room. Of course, many of my colleagues, wind players and singers, and you know, it's harder for them to do that. But the idea that I wanted to just really put out an album of just songs that I love. I mean, some dating back to before I played jazz, Beatles tunes and Joni Mitchell and Jimmy Webb's Wichita Lineman.
Yeah, I love that song.
You know, and yeah, and there were, you know, a couple of sort of theme shout out songs. I did Get Out of Town because so many people have left New York. And then After You've Gone was a shout out to the person who shall not be named at this moment, who resides in Washington, and we are hoping that he will be gone sooner rather than later. So I thought about that. I played a folk song that I learned when I was in elementary school called The Water is Wide, which is...
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, a beautiful song about love and loss and disillusionment. I'm Solitude. I played that. You know, so they're definitely tie in to this moment. It's kind of an outgrowth of the tune of the day that I did during the beginning of the epidemic every day at 1 o'clock on Facebook. And I said that I was going to do this for the duration, but after 6-7 weeks, it was kind of becoming a bit too much. So I kind of let that go.
And I also think that there was this disillusionment or you know, thinking that the end is around the corner, especially in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I mean, we try to maintain like the fall gigs, stuff like that. And I think all of us were kind of like a rats in mice in a maze. And then when we realized that it's not a 2-week thing or 4-week thing, we took another adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it could be a 2-year thing, you know. And I turned 65 yesterday, and so that's been basically since mid-March to mid-October of my partner Scott and I living out in Pennsylvania. Right now I'm in our place in Soho, Manhattan. But these last 7 months, you know, there's been some, I would say, grief at kind of having my identity taken away as a collaborative, performing, improvising musician, touring and playing with other people. And I don't miss the travel, but I do miss the camaraderie, and I
Yeah,
miss
the spirit.
yeah, and going to hang out and hearing your friends play and all that. And I have to say I have not been that serious about playing the piano other than making this album. I've spent a lot of time playing computer Scrabble and reading Swedish crime novels. And but just this birthday, I think, is kind of like, okay, 7 months. You've been working really hard for 45 years. 7 months, okay.
Is
You
enough.
screw off, but I'm trying to get. Now I'm practicing again.
What are you practicing?
Well, ironically, this is a strange thing to do because I've never really done it. But I'm getting back to playing scales.
Canon? I mean,
no, I'm playing the scales and Brahms 51 exercises.
Wow.
And I'm trying to do that every day, just almost like a musical meditation practice, spend a half an hour every day just doing that. I'm also getting back to playing some classical music again.
If you ever wanted to memorize the scherzo, I'm thinking this is the year.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my close friends is the great singer Cecile McLaurin Salvant, and we've played together and we're close buddies. And my former student Sullivan Fortner is her life partner, I guess, at this point. Yeah, and musical partner as well. And she's been recommending that I read Proust. So we all have a lot of time on our hands. So this afternoon I'm going to the bookstore and I'm getting remembrances of things past. And it might take me a year, but we can go slowly.
A year is a breeze. Is a breeze for the Proust bookshelf.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about the new album. Do you feel that it has its own, it has its vibe of all this energy that we live in? Like, how does that portray in the actual playing? What was the process like? You were just saying that you weren't playing a whole lot every day, so it was as simple as putting a nice mic on a Steinway.
Yeah, I have a few nice microphones, and a friend of mine set me up with Logic so I could record on my laptop. And I kind of made a list of songs that I wanted to share with people. But the idea was not like a show-offy original music virtuoso kind of a thing. The idea was more like, a comfort food album with a few, little badass touches if I can get those in there. But, definitely songs, things with memorable melodies. And
I want to ask you about the Jimmy Webb song. Is that something that you kind of knew from home, from being a kid in that area?
Yeah, it was made popular by Glenn Campbell, who he had his own show on Sunday night, which was kind of, back in those days, there were 3 channels of television. So everybody kind of watched the same stuff. And he was a great singer and an amazing guitar player. And that was one of his big hits. And I'm
Charlie Hayden kind of hipped me to him. He was like, he seemed like he knew all those songs inside out.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote quite a wide range of tunes. I mean, he even wrote MacArthur Park. I mean, it's, he was really a kind of crazy songwriter. But like I said, this was before I really listened to any jazz. I'm very lyric sensitive. So if there's a song like Wichita Lineman, or Wouldn't It Be Loverly, which I also put on the album. I'm really hearing the lyrics in my head as I play the melody, and trying to convey the song, and knowing the words helps me decide how I want to interpret the song in terms of the rhythm and the key and the tempo. And it's funny, there are certain standards where I really love the melody and I hate the words. So I just don't play them.
Ah,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking usually I'm going to ask you a lot of questions through albums that I think might have a relationship with your thing.
Cool.
So the first one is Sonny Rollins' The Bridge. I didn't know which one to choose, but I always thought that you had a thing with Rollins in the way that you just the continuity of ideas and not overplaying the horns or the piano, so to speak, and also a sense of wit that is almost like a dry wit and very, very smart, very quick intelligence. Nothing is ever so offy. Everything is. I always felt that there's something in the way that his musical mind works. There's a similarity, and I wanted to. I wanted what it was like for you.
Yeah. Sorry for all the coughing today. To me, nobody exemplifies a jazz musician better than Sonny Rollins. I think to me, he puts everything together just in the way, for me, Carmen McRae personifies jazz singing. You know, I tell
So,
all my piano students, like, must listen repeatedly to Sonny Rollins Trio live from the Village Vanguard and Way Out West. There's no piano. I think those records are a working definition of what great jazz is. The way that one of the things that perhaps we have in common is I always know exactly what song he's playing. He's really connected to this particular song he's playing. I think some young musicians, they kind of get through the melody in order to shred the changes. You know, you
and
really
often it's you go to the set and the whole set kind of sounds the same in a way.
right. He's really specific, and of course, amazing virtuosity and breadth and humor and humanity. And my partner Scott were privileged to be at the Beacon Theater in New York for his 80th birthday celebration.
Famous one, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Sonny at that time, you know, he was suffering from some scoliosis. His back was kind of curved, and he had very gray and white kind of puffy hair, and was wearing this white flowing shirt, and just, you know, giving so generously to the crowd. I mean, every ounce that he had. And as we were leaving the theater, Scott, who'd never seen him, he said, well, I don't know if I believe in God, but if there is a God, I think I just saw him play, you know. And there's something that about him that's just such a generous spirit, and so humble. The way he offers the music, I think there's no better jazz musician. I mean, there's so many, but you know, he's, you know.
I also got to see him in a few open festivals, and what he can do to a crowd of 10,000 people is like unlike anything you see in jazz. I mean, everybody's like dancing on the seats, screaming.
Right.
So it's kind of unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the whole idea that he took 2 years off in the prime of his career and hung out on the Williamsburg Bridge and practiced and kicked drugs, and
saying no to Miles Davis because you want to practice and get better.
Right, exactly. And I have in my email somewhere a magnificent fan letter that he wrote to Coleman Hawkins, who was his hero. Yeah. And there's even a Sonny Meets Hawk record.
Yeah, I love it. Paul Bley is brilliant on it.
Oh, and just just it's you just feel like Sonny is opening the stage for Coleman Hawkins to play, and just there's so much respect there, and you hear the influence so clearly.
And another thing that I think you guys have in common is a brilliant choice of songs, of material, and a brilliant way that is related of choosing, of arcing the set. Like going to see you at the Vanguard, I'm going to go through this emotional journey. It's not going to be just blowing or just a ballad or everything. Like there's, and I always sense there's whether it's conscious or subconscious, there's a connection there in the arc of it.
Well, well, thank you for that. But interestingly, I think that in terms of constructing a set, if you will, or a concert, I was privileged to play with a lot of the great older singers. And of course, I learned a lot of songs in weird keys that I never would have learned otherwise, which was great. But just the way that some of them would construct a set. And I think a set or a concert or an album, it's like planning a menu. You want variety, you want different tastes. I want to play some things that are challenging a little bit. I want to play some things that are fun. One tradition, though, that I've absorbed is there's a tradition called the 11 o'clock song. So you play however many songs you do in the set, and the song right before the final song, which is usually something bright and fun, like for me, always a monk tune.
Yeah.
I always end with a monk tune because it makes everybody happy and it's fun and, kind of gets you off the stage. But that tune right before it, that ballad, is sort of the whole set builds to that one ballad where it's like you've done all this stuff. You don't have to impress anybody at that point. Hopefully they've drunk the Kool-Aid, they're with you. And then you can just put something like right there.
I want to ask you about ballads. I don't think I've ever talked publicly about this, and this is probably not the place to start, but I was in a motorcycle accident about 5 years ago, and I was in the hospital for a while. And I would listen to Moon and Sand and I Love You, Porgy, and you like repeatedly, like you could do that on the app. And you hold my heart and break it at the same time. Like you have a way with these songs that is absolutely spiritual. And I wanted to ask you, what is the process like from you? Like from
yeah, a phrase that I think I first heard from the bassist Red Mitchell back in like 1978 or 9 is that simple isn't easy. And like I said, to just sort of hold a tune in the palm of your hand and just let it breathe. There is a tradition in jazz ballads of what my really only teacher to speak of, Jackie Byard, who was an encyclopedia of jazz piano, one of the all-time greats. He talked about rigolettos, which are arpeggios going up, and waterfalls, which are arpeggios going down. And he said a lot of pianists, they do rigolettos and waterfalls, and honestly, that's really not ever been my thing. I can't really do it very well, but there is a style of jazz ballads that is very much like that.
I'm assuming, excuse me for cutting, that when you were developing, there were the prevalent styles of ballads were either the Coltrane, I Want to Talk About You, Let's Blow the House Down, or anywhere you would go across the US, there would be a Bill Evans imitation.
Yeah.
And you came out and you created a new universe that I think is very, if Louis mentioned your students, Meldau and Ethan, I think it's also, you gave it to the next generation as well.
Yeah, well, one thing I hope I gave those guys was just respect for the melody. Think about, you know, think about that. Also, in solo piano playing, this is something I talk about. There's an opportunity to make what I call continuous music.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not really marking choruses or sections, so that 5 choruses of a song, of a 32 bar song, that can be 160 bars of continuous music, and not 32 5 times or 8 bars 25 times. I certainly think Bill Evans, in his way, emotionally, especially in his early years, opened up, and Miles opened up a certain ballad universe for people. I was also privileged to hang out with all the great pianists. I mean, I heard Tommy Flanagan on numerous occasions, and Hank Jones and Sir Roland Hanna, and especially Jimmy Rolls, who was, to me, one of the
Absolute giant.
great
Giant.
ballad players, and understated and super cool, and could play these beautiful kind of in the cracks tempos. And so many young musicians, tempos.
Yeah, it's a lost art now.
Yeah, tempos come in like small, medium, large, slow, and
I'm going to steal this from you if you don't mind.
right. Well, yeah, but you listen to Jimmy Rolls or Shirley Horn or Andy Bay, and they can play these, what I call turtle crawl, slow ballads with all this space.
Yeah.
And, just to let the phrases kind of float in there.
Yeah.
That's.
I once asked Billy about this, and he said that to play, if you want to get better at this, you play blues so slow that the clouds are moving too fast. I'm giving you this seasick.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image. Yeah, I think the other thing that's maybe important to me, or is just touch. Thinking about if you're a horn player, you're breathing into an instrument, so of course you have to deal with sound and air. Pianists, or guitarists, I mean, we can play for a half an hour without a space because we don't have to breathe. So just thinking about how your touch affects your phrasing, and where you're leaving space, and
I'm going to ask you
tell a story the best you can.
I'm going to ask you a different question about this. If you're playing a different piano on tour, every different piano every night, which is something that I would never do. I mean, if I had to play a different guitar, I'm not going anywhere. So how do you maintain your own sound on a different instrument that has different humidity, different strings? Some are old, different actions, some are stiff, some are this.
Well, the first people that made me aware of that, and this is very early on when I was a developing piano player in Cincinnati in the early 70s. I didn't have a teacher. I just learned from records, really. The two people that hit me to sound were Duke Ellington.
That was going to be my next. That was going to be my next one.
Oh, great! Because you can listen to a Duke Ellington record from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and he always had that same sound.
Yeah.
And the other one was Ahmad Jamal. He hipped me to the upper end of the piano. He had the most beautiful sound with his original trio with Vernell,
Crosby, yeah.
Israel Crosby. Um, and, you know, I think for pianists, it is weird. It's probably the most complicated mechanical machine, you know, analog mechanical machine around. You don't touch the keys, you don't breathe into them, but 6 piano players could sit down to the same piano and it would sound different. It's crazy
Yeah.
the way that it is. So, I mean, basically, your sound is, you know, in your ears and in your body and in the mechanism by which you engage with the action. I mean, it is a percussion instrument. Um, so, but you know, touch and sound would be like, you know, if you're a drummer, you don't hit a drum and leave the stick on the drum.
Yeah.
You hit the drum and the skin gives a little bit, energy comes back, and then the stick goes off, and that's how it works. It's the interaction, and it's the same thing with a piano. It's you know, if you're pushing down at the bottom and just hanging out there, it's actually going to sound, the sound is going to sound shorter than if you find out how to float and kind of let everything sing a little bit more. And of course, there are pedal tricks and all kinds of other things that you can do. But I think, you know, on the piano, like any other instrument, your sound is your voice, and your voice kind of determines what choices you make in terms of the music, you know.
And I think what a lot of younger people like me don't realize is that the thing that the audience care most about is your sound. I mean, practice giant steps as long as you want, but if you don't give them that generosity of sound, and it doesn't envelops them. So let's talk. I didn't know which one to choose of the Ellingtons, but I feel that this has a special meaning because you are very, very generous with the younger generation in your musical activities and your knowledge and your time, and especially your music. And that is something that is not always, it cannot always be easy. Um, that I'm 40, I know both sides of the equation. It's not always easy, but you find a way to make it timeless, to bridge whatever generation gap or cultural gap. There's something timeless about the relationship that you have. It could be Hayden and Blackwell, and then it can be with Anat Cohen and Julian Lage.
Yeah.
So I want to. You could comment on this, or you can comment or the brilliance of composition that Duke Ellington was for you. You always choose his most beautiful things.
Yeah, the first Ellington record that I had was one called Ellington Uptown, and
Good one, yeah.
it to me, it in that record, that one album encompasses the whole world of Duke Ellington and of Billy Strayhorn. There's a fantastic version of vocal version of "Take the A Train," which of course Billy Strayhorn wrote, and the introduction has the it's one of those classic first choruses of anything that people could sing along with, just like Ella Fitzgerald's solo on "How High the Moon" or
Yeah.
Coleman Hawkins' solo on "Body and Soul." These are the touchstones. Betty Roche sings the hell out of it. Then there's "Tone Parallel to Harlem." My favorite track is one of many versions that Duke did of a kind of a blues called "The Mooch."
Yeah.
And it's got dueling clarinets that are just fantastic. And all these are just epic arrangements. It was his first album in stereo. There's a drum feature for Louis Bellson that Louis wrote called "Skin Deep." And then there's "Tone Parallel to Harlem," which is one of his great extended pieces. And you know, thinking about Duke Ellington extending himself to John Coltrane and for each of them stepping into each other's world. I mean, to me, that's why I do this. I don't do this to play by myself. You know, now that I'm older, you know, of course, playing with, you know, Anat Cohen or Julian Lage or Esperanza Spalding or Cecile McLaurin-Salvant or some of the brilliant, you know, younger musicians, Miguel Zenon, those help me grow and give me great pleasure. Chris Potter, but also as I came up, realizing that older musicians extended that to me, you know, that, you know, here I am, this kind of young white guy playing on a bandstand with Joe Henderson and Ron Carter and Al Foster at the Village Vanguard. You know, well, there were nights when I thought, like, wow, what did I do to deserve this? It's pretty intimidating and freaky, and
To say the least, yeah.
but on the other hand, when the downbeat starts, you know, I realize, like, I'm 1/4 of what's going on up here, and maybe I am meant to be here. And
I don't think many people know that you're the first artist in history to play a solo engagement at the Vanguard, like a week-long thing.
yeah,
I mean, to say that you deserve to be there, if some people are lucky to get one album at the Village Vanguard, and I think half of your discography is in different instrumentations of that.
yeah, it's become my home. I'll be streaming there actually on November 5th and 6th and 7th, one night solo and one night duo with Miguel Zenon. You know, the Vanguard streaming thing, they've just gotten it back up and running, but the quality, the photography, the sound is the best in the business. You really feel like you're in the club. It's really super well done. But yeah, I've had this 20+ year history as a leader there, and
Any favorite moments as a listener there from the golden years of the club in New York?
Oh yeah, I mean, one of my favorite among many moments was the last time I heard Bobby Hutcherson and Billy Higgins there. And Billy was towards the end of his life. He had been battling all kinds of illness, kidney disease, and everything else. And I came for the first set, and he just played his heart out. You know, it was just magnificent. And he was in the kitchen, which sort of functions as the band room, you know, where everybody hangs out. And he was in the chair, what we called Lorraine's chair.
Lorraine's chair, yeah.
Exactly. Right, which is the office chair that was hers in front of the desk. And I came in to pay my respects. I'd met Billy a number of times. We had never played together. I was lucky to apprentice with the great bass player Sam Jones.
Yeah.
And he and Billy had that was one of the great rhythm sections in history, in my opinion. We almost got to play together a couple of times, never happened. But anyway, I walked in and Billy was there, and he was just spent and sweating. And I just went over and I said, you know, I wanted to say hello. And he, with great effort, got up and gave me a hug. And, you know, he knew what I'd been through with my health, and I knew what he'd been through with his health. And he gave me a beautiful hug. And then he kind of held me at arm's length and just looked at me. He said, "It's great to be alive."
Wow, 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 wow. I'm getting chills here. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me choked up to think about it too. You know, and I heard, you know, Tommy Flanagan and Bill Evans, and I was there the first week that Dexter Gordon came back.
Wow, the big one, the homecoming thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
4 of us drove down from Boston in the afternoon. We parked, we went and we got pizza. We waited in line. We heard a set of Dexter and drove back to Boston.
Wow.
You know, yeah. The first time I heard Thad Jones and Mel Lewis, the sound
Wow.
of Mel Lewis's drum set in that club is one of the great sounds of jazz.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that place is a treasure.
Yeah, we got to hope that it survives.
I'm trying to do the same thing you do with news right now. I'm trying to, lift my faith and shout out the so it's not it's not spoken about as often as I think it must. Your compositional genius but just your sheer output is unbelievable. I chose something I don't know if it's a hit or a miss, but I chose a Mingus album, Blues and Roots. But I could choose any Mingus album from the classic. I always felt there's a relationship there, the voicings, the just the language, and also the length of it could be the length of the form, very unique forms. I always felt it played like, and you didn't do it in the obvious way in the instrumentation or stealing the language.
Yeah.
But I always felt there's a connection, and I wanted to know that more about.
Honestly, I can remember vividly, in Cincinnati in about 1970, I would say it was January of 1974. And I had just sat in for the first time in a jazz club and dropped out of school and decided I wanted to make this music my life. And there was a couple of musicians there, the local great local rhythm section, who were maybe 5 years older than me, but I looked up to them as gods, and they had all kinds of great records, and I have to say, really great weed. And they were really gracious to me, and we'd spend many late nights at their place, just listening to jazz together. And in one night, they played the two records that changed my life. One was Miles Davis, Friday, Saturday Night at the Black Hawk.
I actually pulled a couple. I pulled Wynton Kelly with Wes, and I pulled the same band. I pulled this because I always felt that there's an uplift to the feel, to the time.
Yeah.
That I felt a connection.
Yeah, I mean, Wynton had what I call happy time. He was Miles Davis said that he was his favorite accompanist.
Yeah. What does that mean, happy time? Like, tell me all about it.
Yeah, you're right. There's a certain little edge and kind of an assertiveness and like a kind of a certain pocket. His playing is not that complicated to understand, but he was a beautiful phrase maker. And on that record, the way that he placed the chords behind Miles and behind Hank Mobley, the fact that it's a live album and you can just hear it, you feel like you're there.
And I also think that you guys share this ability to cook a rhythm section. I mean, whether it's with Jane Ira Bloom in one style or it's going to be with Art Farmer in a different style, you cook up the band. I mean, that's almost like a lost art now, to be a band pianist.
Yeah, I treasure all those different people that I got to play with, and I think back particularly in the 70s, 80s, when I was doing a lot of these sideman gigs, you also had to think about, okay, I can't play the same way with this person I'm playing with that person. Sometimes during Joe Henderson's epic solos, I would just lay out for a while, and he didn't say anything. I just felt it, and he gave me the best advice about comping that I still pass on to this day. After a number of years, we were again in the kitchen at the Vanguard, and I said, Joe, we never talked about music. I said, Joe, I lay out sometimes, and I guess it's cool. And he looked at me, he had these big glasses.
You did this?
Yes, he did that. And he said, if you feel it, it's right. If you think it, it's probably not right. So I took that to mean, like, if it becomes a routine,
yeah,
then maybe not. But if you play what you feel, if you feel like the band needs a push or needs space, just respect your feeling. And that's what's so beautiful about that Miles record. The other one was Mingus, which is
Nipples.
Yeah, which is a small ensemble, small big band. I don't think Mingus orchestrated all of it, but to me, it's kind of like Duke Ellington on acid. It's once again Jackie Byard, the best Charlie Mariano on alto on record, and it's just this amazing, beautiful universe, and he got so much from a small group of instruments. And when I did larger pieces like Leaves of Grass and my Coma Dreams, I tried to think, how can I have a small enough ensemble to make it feel like a chamber music group, but large enough to feel significant and orchestral. And that was something that I really got from the way Mingus handled us, small and mid-sized groups. He was a genius at it.
I think there must be something ethereal about it, because you have your own language, but the connection is so strong and it's so evident that I had to bring it up. I felt I had to bring it up. I have a few here more, but I'm gonna try to wrap it up. There's a lot of them. I could choose any Billie Holiday, but I choose one with Jimmy Rolls on it.
Excellent.
I could go anywhere and everywhere with this. You played with so many of the great vocalists across generations, and I'm thinking there's almost no one alive that has as vast a repertoire as you do. I mean, it's really no. Come on, it's really unbelievable. Don't play the humble card.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's incalculable how much I have learned from singers, not just the value of finding the right key for a song and the right tempo for a song, the value of learning words, as I said, how to put together a set. I do think, now the only way that I'll play with a vocalist is in a duo. I spent many years playing in trios, backing up singers, doing arrangements, and that was great work. It got me through a lot of years.
Yeah, I got fed in New York. First couple of years in New York, in a restaurant, in a bar, just bass, guitar, and vocals. And
yeah, I think
if you can play a song in a few couple of keys, you're good.
Yeah, I think we all did that back then, and it was honest work and a lot of times a lot of fun.
But you took it to the art of song. You took it to a whole new.
Well, it was crazy. Last night I had a Zoom birthday party, and on the call was Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, Dominique Eade up in Boston, Norma Winston in London.
Wow, Norma.
Siegel in New York. Like all of my favorite singers were on the call. As I said, now I just play in a duo because I feel like that way I can orchestrate, and there's something about just sort of backing up a singer. I think the word accompany means to go with. It's some singers view accompanists as kind of like servants in a way. But in a duo, I feel like Kate McGarry was there.
Yeah, Kate is great.
Kate is just, the best. And so the singers that I'll play with now are the ones that are capable of, interacting and listening and being spontaneous and,
And I don't want to name any names, but you also have your unique way of bringing out a lot of vulnerability in vocalists that sometimes it's not as prevalent in their other work.
yeah, I've been known to try to make people a little uncomfortable. uh, uh, you know, I, I mean, I'd like to think that they like it because they still, I mean, I will name a name, Kurt Elling, who is.
By the way, Danilo Perez told me that the inspiration to do songs was Kurt came from you, and he wishes you happy birthday and sends you his love.
Oh, how nice! Danilo is just one of the great geniuses out there, and I have so much respect for him. But I think on Leaves of Grass, I wrote it for Kurt, and there are places that I really asked him to just, as I said, hold something in his hand. In a way, he, in a beautiful way, he tends to be very big, and to get him to, when he's quiet and almost whispering, it's just magnificent. So yeah, I mean, I'm a friend to singers, and I do love them.
Well, they all love you. So I have a few here. I have a Chicken Gary Burton, some duos. I have some Charlie Hayden duo. I have Coltrane Quartet because there's so much spirituality in the music. I'm not going to get into that this time. I want to do the last one. It's kind of unbelievable. It's impossible to talk to you without speaking about Monk. So I knew it was either one of the trios, but I took Monk's Dream because just give me Charlie Rouse on any given night, and I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
But you have a very special relationship with his music. It's very, very deep. It's very authentic, and you're the only guy that doesn't try to play Monk like Monk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, if you try to play Monk like Monk, you lose. It's because he's already recorded Monk playing Monk. So, like if we had recordings of Beethoven doing his sonatas, you could say, okay, well, this is definitive. This is how the guy wanted them. We are fortunate enough to have Monk, who's maybe the most significant composer of tunes, short form tunes in jazz, playing them all. So you could say those are definitive, and why bother? For me, I go back to the original sheet music and just really try to play from what's there. And Monk's music is always has a dance to it. You can hear his relationship to tap dancing in many of the songs. Like Evidence is like a funny tap dance. And to try to get the spirit of the music and the way that he used space and play his music with love and respect, but filter it through my sensibility. And here I am, like, a gay Jewish guy from the Midwest and white guy, and there he is, Thelonious Monk from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, born in 1917 and growing up in, New York.
Hardcore New York, yeah.
Yeah, and you think, wow, how would this relationship work? But
I don't think love looks at any of those things. It just, and your love is so evident on all those recordings.
Yeah,
it's so strong.
Yeah, and some of those Monk's music, they're like these amazing puzzles, and some of them have taken years of playing to figure out how to be fluid and fluent with them. Some of them I've rearranged in different ways. Some I just play like straight down and just have a good time. But there, if you look at blues in B flat, getting back to Sonny Rollins and specifics, I would play Misterioso, which is all these sixths. I would play it differently than Blue Monk, which is all whole and half steps. So, I always tell people, look at your theme. Like, you can't think of anything to play, look at the theme, like what's in there. And so even though they're both blues in B flat, they're different pieces. So I think Monk forces you to look at each piece and the motives and the thematic material and the progression specifically. And that's why it's interesting. And I could keep playing them. Some of these I've played for, 30, 40 years and still enjoy them and feel like I could play them differently tomorrow night. So,
well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow night then.
Yeah, well, we are all looking forward to a tomorrow night with live audiences.
Yeah, definitely. Fred, I'm gonna again wish you a happy birthday, and I'm gonna thank you for both your contribution to this art form, which is just immense, and also for the very special place your music has in my life, as you know, for so many years. And your generosity with me and pretty much everyone I know, as it's just been it's stuff of legends by now. Lastly, take really good care of yourself so I can see you in a normal world in a normal way. Give you a hug.
Yeah.
I love to Scott. My girlfriend, I told her a month ago that it's your birthday, that the episode, and she says, "Remember that shirt I got you for your birthday? Can you wear that shirt for Fred's birthday?" So this is the second time I'm wearing this. We send you our love from Berlin, you and Scott, and we're looking forward to seeing you real soon.
Okay, thank you so much. And all those of you out there, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the lovely questions and great albums. It brought back so many wonderful memories.
It was absolute joy for me. If anyone is watching, we're giving away a copy of Fred's album. So anyone who's sharing the stream throughout the week is eligible to get a free gift from Fred. Next week we have my soul brother Logan Richardson, who has a new album. So tune in and stay safe and stay well. And if you can, don't forget to vote. And we'll see you guys.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.